Hey everyone, today we're going to be looking at the V-Cube 3, so I got the black DIY version. Alright, there we are. Okay, so here it is. So I'm very interested to start talking about this because this cube has generated a lot of controversy. So later on in the video I'll be giving you some insight as well and some background on it. But for now, let's assemble this thing. So this is probably just like the V-Cube 2 where they have different size springs again. I guess this is as good a time as any to get a good look at the mechanism. So yeah, these definitely look like torpedoes, very similar to what they have in the Zanshi. You can see that. Now let's see, can I get two halves of an edge piece? Yeah, there we are. So there's the similarity between the two. I believe I heard it's more similar to the Guhong than anything, but I'll be talking more about the similarities later. Let's just get this thing assembled now. Okay, so first off, let's get all of these edge pieces put together. I think I'll try it out with the torpedoes in there first, and then see how it looks later on. Alright, so now it's time to put the caps on the corners, and it's really nice that they did this, although that's typical among 3x3 makers, but I wish they would also do it on the V-Cube 5 and 7. So you can see here that there's a little hole where a cap would be, and if I get close enough, yeah, you can see a little ledge right there. So it's like they intended to put a cap on them, but then decided not to save money, but yeah, I really wish they would. Alright, so just like with the V-Cube 3, it came with three types of springs. So we've got these really squishy kinds that are very flexible. There's the squishy one compared to the not so squishy one, and then a medium one with a strong one. So it looks like they didn't give me enough for the squishy kind of springs. I've only got 4 of them over there, but then I've got 6 here and about 8 over there. I'm just gonna go with the medium one. Okay, so I got the screw screwed in all the way so that I can get perfect tensions on all 6 sides. Well, now one nice thing that they did with the screws here is they made a little flat circle thing so that way I can thread it into the core first and then I can begin screwing. And of course, just like with the V-Cube 2, they have a very stiff core, and oh man, I almost gave my finger a blister again. Okay, so let's start putting this thing together. Okay. Alright, there we are. So, a bit stiff at the moment. Sounds a bit clunky, but we'll give it some lubricant and I'll break it in, and certainly needs a lot of improvement, but what DI Cube doesn't? Yes, let's get these center caps on. Oh my, man, they really go on there. So, how does that work? Oh, I get it. What happens is that this circle has to fit outside of that circle, so it's just a tight fit, which will make it a pain to adjust the tensions after I get it all lubed up. Now here's the stickers. Nice. I always have loved V-Cube's shade of colors, so this will be really nice. Oh, and it's nice that they put some application tape on there. That'll make it a lot easier, just so long as they're all straight, and it looks like it. A lot more error prone, but I'm willing to take the risk. It's a little awkward angle for me to put it on there, but let's see how I do. Okay, looks good. So, and that should just come right off. Ah, very nice. Yeah, that looks really nice. All right, and there goes the last side. Yep. Oh, yeah, that looks really neat. All right, so let's give it some lube to see how this stuff turns. And I gotta rotate it sideways. Okay, all right, there we go. Some down in there, some way down there. Moving all around. This is Lubix Lube, by the way. Some pretty expensive stuff, but it works pretty well. Okay, so I've lubed it in several places, so... Oh yeah, it's turning much better now. Okay. Oh yes, but it still needs a lot of breaking in. Alright, so I've probably given this thing about 50 or so solves, and as I was solving it for the first couple of times, I could feel it getting better each time I solved. So I feel it's pretty well broken in now. So let's look at the corner cutting. I am using the medium springs, and it looks decent. And let's see, the other way, yeah, it's, kind of. It gets a bit locked up there. Oh, and now let's compare the differences between the springs. Now, of course, I didn't have enough of the weaker one, so I obviously won't be showing that. But let's start with the medium one. Yeah, that should give you a good idea. And then here's a little PLL. And here's the stronger springs. Okay, so I don't know if you were able to tell the difference or not, but I definitely recommend the medium springs as opposed to the strong ones. It just made it too stiff, and this seems to be a nice comfortable tension. Oh, and I also tried it without the torpedoes, and it started popping instantly. Ah. And I've noticed, even with the torpedoes in, it can still pop if the tension is too loose. Ah! So I would recommend no more than 2 wrist turns away from the tightest tension you can get. So after a lot of experimenting, I think I have gotten the cube to a decent tension. But I suppose the best way to do this is to compare it to the Zhanchi, and I've got a stickerless one here. And after playing with both of them over and over again, I must say that the Zhanchi is a little bit better than the V-Cube. I think the biggest thing is just that the corners and edges and centers are all so much more rounded in the Zhanchi, so there's a lot more flexibility in here, while the V-Cube seems a bit more like a standard 3x3. And let's see if I can show you what I mean between the two cubes. So I'll give both of them a solve right after the other. Alright. And the Zhanchi. Alright, so maybe now you have a good indication of how these two cubes compare. But one thing's for sure though, this is V-Cube's first 3x3, and this is Diane's 5th cube. When we look at the first Diane 3x3, it doesn't even compare to the V-Cube 3. So who knows, maybe V-Cube will come out with another model where all of the edges are smoothed down a bit, and maybe it will be comparable to the Zhanchi. Though they said on their Facebook page about a year ago that they'd be trying to release 1 cube every year, so I bet they would try to get some of the larger cubes out because that's where they'll make the most money before they make a new 3x3. So the V-Cube 3 is decent, it's just that the Zhanchi just glides so much more smoothly and it cuts corners so much nicer. Oh, and one other thing about the assembled version of the cube, I have seen many reports from several reviews where not all of the pieces come with torpedoes. And as a result, some of those people are having trouble with pops. My DIY version came with the exact amount of pieces, except for 2 cores, a bunch of springs, and screws. So until people start getting cubes with torpedoes in all of the edges, I would highly recommend the DIY version. Now as for shipping goes, V-Cube only offers UPS, so it was very expensive. It came here really quickly in several days, but I would have preferred some, just standard shipping there. And also it was set up for signature confirmation, so because my mom wasn't here the day it came, I had to wait until the next day for it to be dropped off. So it would be nice if the company didn't sign up for that. And as for the price itself, the standard version is 15 euros, and the DIY I think was 14, and that's around 18 or $20. You can check out the latest currency conversions from xe.com. And then combined with shipping, I paid over 34 bucks for this thing. For my stickerless Zhanchi here, it cost $20 including shipping. Of course, I bought this from a US store, so that makes a little more sense. If I didn't have a YouTube channel, I would have waited until their North American distribution center got a hold of these so that they could start putting them up on Amazon. And our family is Amazon Prime, so it would have cost just about $20. Okay, so that's all about I have to say for the review itself. Now let's move on to the controversy behind it. Now what sparked it is the Diane company came out with the Guhong. I believe that was the 3rd Diane cube, and that was over a year ago. And suddenly V-Cube started contacting PayPal and getting them to withdraw their support from cubing distribution sites that sold the Guhong. And back then, it was one of the best cubes out there. So a lot of people in the cubing community were getting up in a frenzy over this. And probably as a result, the dispute was finally settled. But it was really puzzling to me because the Diane cubes didn't look anything like the patent from the V-Cube company. Well, the V-Cube 3 finally came out, and we were finally able to see why V-Cube went after Diane. This is what the final product of the pieces look like. And here's the centerpiece. But the patent shows a much different design. As for the V-Cube 2, notice that they did decide to go with the root as displayed in their patent, and the edge pieces look the same as well. Now, what looks even more suspicious is when we take the pieces from a Zhanchi, although note that this is a few models up from the Guhong, but it still looks relatively the same. We've got pieces that look very similar to each other in the corner of a Zhanchi to a V-Cube. Even the centerpieces look similar. Now, this does make sense why V-Cube went after Diane, but considering that the Guhong has been out for over a year, it really looks like Diane was the victim in this case and not V-Cube. But there's another factor that most people haven't considered, and I'll demonstrate that with a V-Cube 5. This one just happens to have Supercube stickers on it. Alright, so now I have it all in pieces. Now, what the original V-Cube 3 patent suggests is that the corners would look something like this. Alright, so I've got all of the edges and corner centers around the main corner of the 5x5. And see, this looks a lot more similar to the original V-Cube 3 patent design. Then this edge piece, paired up with some of the centers, also looks very similar to the original V-Cube 3 design. And finally, the centerpiece on the V-Cube 5 looks identical to the centerpiece on the V-Cube 3. So why doesn't the V-Cube 3 look like any of those pieces? Well, it looks like they decided to take a different route. Instead, they made their corner look just like it does on the 5x5. Also, they decided to go with a different rearrangement of edge pieces. With this combination, now they look very similar, except they decided to fill in that little gap right there. See that? And finally, the centerpieces. Notice that this combination also looks very similar to the V-Cube 3. It's just that this has this extra height on it. Look at that. Now, after showing that to you, it's clear that the Diane cubes resemble the V-Cubes. And of course, the V-Cubes have been around for 3.5 years, and the Guhong has only been around for a year. So if there's any copying that's going on, it's definitely the Diane cubes. But what about the torpedoes that prevent the edge pieces from popping? Certainly this hasn't shown up in any of the V-Cubes or in the patent. And there are a couple of possibilities that would explain this. First off, the V-Cube could have copied them. I mean, certainly enough people have copied them. Second, they may have just come up with the idea on their own, though they would have had to be very oblivious in the cubing community to miss it. Third, there may have been a licensing agreement to settle the whole dispute they had a year ago. But when asked about this on their Facebook page by Crazy Bad Cuber, the V-Cube representative got very defensive, completely sidestepped the question multiple times, and was rather rude about it. Now, I certainly understand their feelings. Certainly I would be upset if someone was stealing my design and stealing some of my business. But responses like that were certainly uncalled for. So will we ever know for sure what really happened? Probably not. But whatever the case may be, I think we should just put the whole thing behind us. There are so many variations of 3x3s out there, it's really hard to say what's a knockoff and what isn't. Certainly I feel it's important to defend V-Cube products when it comes to higher order puzzles, but again, the 3x3s, yeah. But on a more positive note, I would recommend getting this cube for collecting purposes. The mechanism that Verdes came up with was completely revolutionary in cubing. And to have a 3x3 that, in the very least, uses most of the V-Cube mechanism, I think is definitely worth getting. But again, I recommend that you wait until they come out on Amazon. Well, I believe that's all I have to say in this video. I hope you guys appreciated my insight. And if you found the review helpful, feel free to check out the playlist of other reviews I made, and you can even subscribe above to be notified of future videos. Thanks for watching!